welcome to another episode of Future of Data newscast. This is week 35 and we have something fun this week as well from Tao. Hey Maria, how are you?
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
It's
Everything's going good this week?
it's now almost I start missing you on every next week on this podcast. So this is like it's pretty cool. So how are things?
Yeah, really good. The summer is winding down, but we're not giving up on summer yet.
Yes.
So,
Oh yes. And to our listeners and friends in Houston, stay
yes,
dry, guys and gals. I think this is you are in our thoughts. So I know it has been a terrible tragedy, and we have put some charity there, and I'll put a link with this podcast to anyone who's listening if they can pitch in and help out. So there has been a terrible storm going on. I think they're hitting the second tropical level Harvey now. And even to our
yeah,
friends in Mumbai, in India, they have seen some devastating flood as well. So to people there, stay warm and dry, and our thoughts and prayers are with you. And we hope these cities are very strong. So I hope these cities recover. So with that, let's resume the podcast. So Maria, back to our summer. So how are things at on Raleigh?
yeah, things are really great. We're having lots of events, and school is starting back up soon. So, we have lots of interesting projects and things going on that the students are involved in.
Nice.
So,
And
we also have lots of startups here, so there's lots of opportunity for anyone in the data space
oh
to
yes,
really growing.
it's yes, it is growing. I think it's and I think nowadays I'm fascinated with the conversation now, because I think couple of years back it was, hey, big data, what is big data, how to get big data, 3 V's, 4 V's, 12 V's, like it was all around that. And now it's all machine learning. So it's
Hmm.
the conversation has really matured in couple of years, and it's fascinating to see sort of like people who have no exposure to big data, now they're worried about machine learning. So
Hmm.
it's definitely it's an exciting time from a technology point of view. So whoever is involved, I think we are having a ball here. I hope this dream never ends for all of us. So
Yeah, and some of those things we can see in the articles that Tao pulls up
right.
about what was predictive a couple of years ago, and then what is now like having the most impact in the data space. So I think it's really interesting that we have
Yeah,
that Tao that we can pull up those.
I know it's fascinating. And this week's newsletter. So what do you think? What's your high level thoughts?
On the themes,
Yeah.
I yeah, this one was, I think, in the past we've had a couple articles that would come up and have the same kind of theme, like the cybersecurity and whatnot. And this one, I think it was very much diverse. I like that there was some infographics that were brought up, some articles, some videos and tutorials. So it was kind of, I feel like it was more diverse.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I thought maybe Tao is having a flu when I saw this newsletter. So I said, "What the hell is this?" Like it's all over the place, but I think it's still some exciting bits. I definitely appreciate the cool thing that I love about these newsletters. I think you got to learn a lot of things. Many times, like in every newsletter, we get about 5 to 6 things which we have no clue on what the hell is going on, and we end up going
Yeah.
digging and sort of picking it out, and it's fascinating. I think it's fascinating to sort of see such a lively piece of newsletter. So, anyways, I'm harping my own sort of. We are biased, so I don't know whether this counts. This excitement counts. Maybe it's not. We'll resume after a short break. This part of the program is sponsored by Job Fair at Tao.ai. To learn more, go to jobfair, that's jobfair dot tao dot ai, a fastest AI driven way to help you find your next job. Do check them out. Let's get back to the podcast. So
Well, do
now,
we start with the cover?
yes, yes. So yeah, so why don't you take a stab at it?
Yeah, so we have, I think it's another Dilbert comic, right?
Yes.
And the cartoon is called Trust the Data, and he's asking, I need some data from an unreachable guy named Ed, and what should I do? And I don't know if the little pup has a name,
Dogbert.
but he says, just make it up like everyone else does. And then he's like, what, everybody else does that? And he responds with, well, are you doubting my data? And so it's
I
a little
love
funny.
I love Dogbert. I think such a smart character they have created.
Yeah,
Besides,
a wisecrack here and there all the time.
He's very sharp. I agree. So I think this is putting a stab at creating biases with data, or
Yeah.
maybe authenticity with data, right? So which data is authentic or not? Because when you have too much stuff going around, we tend to see data with no with either biases in place. That's again, it's as good as the modeler, right? Who sort of researched on the data, or it's just made
Mm-hmm.
up. So it's very difficult to get an authentic source. I remember, like, I was discussing this with state of Massachusetts a couple of I get years back on one of the discussion was what are some of the credible places to find data sources. And you must be hearing that, Maria. I think a lot. You have worked with City, right? So do we
Yes, yes.
lot of data
That's the,
everywhere?
yes.
Can we have a central archive where we can have all this data? And you have worked on that project with City as well. So you want to share quickly what
Well,
that
just
was?
centralizing the data and having it. Well, just even as this comic opened up with, I need to get some data from an unreachable guy named Ed. Like, it's almost kind of science fiction, almost kind of like, Minority Report, like, secret or Matrix Underground. I mean, but it kind of gets like that because everyone wants to keep their data safe and they want to protect the data. And, there isn't a lot of security with, especially with public data. So, we do see that kind of like protection over the data and kind of a little secrecy. And we are trying to break those barriers so that there can be more trust and the conversation with that data can be more useful because it's all centralized.
Interesting.
So it's in process. It's in process.
Work in progress.
Yeah.
So beautiful. So now let's get into the next Analytics Week bites, and to our audience, these are the blogs that Analytics Week that are posted on Analytics Week by some authors or by our curation engine. So it's either of those guys. So today's the first write up is it's an infographic, and I think this is
Yeah.
I don't know if I've seen an infographic in this newsletter before. Have you seen that, Maria? Do you remember?
No, I think that we had one, but I like that it comes up sometimes because
Right.
some of the information there is really, condensed and presented concisely. This one is about really thinking about the customer and having that in mind when you're in the beginning processes of
Right.
working with the
And
data.
customer
So,
experience is one of the savviest domain that understands data and understand human behavior. Like I am fascinated by what customer experience folks do. Like they are on the cutting edge of technologies all the time. They always have a role to understand their customers from either their transactions or their relationship with brand. Such a complicated task to perform, and such a beautiful place to actually utilize data, because not like many people don't even say, or many, like we have heard beautiful stories on brands predicting what you want to buy even when you don't want to buy, right? So This
Mm-hmm.
is the place, and I think this infographic is, again, as you rightly said, it's refreshing to see everything condensed, or a lot of years of research condensed into a very simple looking infographic. And this is one of those infographic on state of customer service, and that's again one of the verticals of customer experiences, customer service. And it just talk about bunch of stats that we need to monitor, bunch of processes that are out there, very quick and snappy 30-second read to know what's going on. It's fascinating.
Yeah. And I think I agree with you that that feedback loop, that having the pulse on your audience and what they need and speaking to them from that way of helping them is something that's really important no matter what business or silo. And that entrepreneurs that are, trying to get their footing is something that they can also use and refer to as things that they should keep in mind,
Right.
when trying to cultivate that audience.
That's true. That's true. And rightly said. I think let's go to the next one. So, how Google does prototyping? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I thought this was a really great. It's only 8 minutes of video, but Tamshi, I was someone who started in the beginning of innovation with Google and projects like he says that were science fiction. They haven't even, had anything to develop these concepts yet, and they are just in there trying to figure out ways to prototype. And he comes with really quick 8 minutes of just getting you, I think, in that doing mindset, because you can think and you can think for a long time and you cannot get things done. And I think that this video really helps with showing how you don't really need to have too much to just get started.
Right. No, I rightly said, Maria. I think what I loved about this video was, as you rightly said, that many times when we hear about people, right? So any startups in data science space, when we talk to them, hey, I'm working on this phenomena, and I'm sort of munching and trying to fixing my logic. It will take me next 4 5 months. I practice, and then once I'm ready, I'll go out. This is a perfect
Mm-hmm.
video for those folks, right? Because many times we
Mm-hmm.
over prepare. That's our tendency. Like we are many times we are the worst doubters of our capabilities. So from that perspective, I think this gives you a perspective on how you can just, for as complex thing as Google Glass, you can just quickly prototype something very rapidly and just at least get the experience out. So there's, because I think it's almost like opening a can of worms, right? So every time you pick it up, you see more and more issues. It's important to get to the next stage faster rather than just keep brushing the first stage and just never leaving there. So this is, I think, one of the best example, and I think why I love why Tao puts it in the newsletter primarily is, in data science we have the same problem. Like we have, I'm working on this model, and many times I have seen personally overfitting a model is more known than underfitting, right? So people are, hey, I'm working on this, I'm testing this, and it just never leaves the shop. And it's sad to see like many of such a beautiful innovation that could have been out there are stuck and dying on their test beds still.
Yeah, really, people have really great ideas, and that's another great point that he brings around his presentation at the end, is that anyone can take their interest and apply these models and find something innovative, because there's just so much to discover, and there's so much knowledge out there that we don't know. So I love the encouragement.
Yeah, I know. This is like, as you rightly said, it's quick 8 minutes of encouragement. I think this is beautiful, and gets you out. So definitely a must watch for everyone. So the next one, digital marketing 2.0, rise of the predictive analytics. Thoughts?
Okay, so this is one of those articles that we were kind of touching on in the beginning, that I feel like, when you look at what it was in 2015, I think this was written. Yeah. So in 2015, there was a notion to go towards like machine learning, towards natural language processing, the memory analytics, and the Internet of Things. And I think, we're kind of there. So it's been 2 years later, and these are the areas that, whether it be healthcare or finance or, even psychology and manufacturing, these are important aspects and tools now that are kind of like, if you're not incorporating them in part of your solution or in part of getting to the next level, then you're a little behind.
And I think and you have raised a very interesting point, and I think this is something that possibly users could take away. So, marketing analytics in 2 years, 2 years ago, was thinking about predictive analytics, data and memory and SQL. And if you look at the current trends in insurance tech or insure tech, you can call it, you can say in um, retail, and or you can talk about pharmaceuticals, you are seeing the similar articles as the cutting edge,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
now it gives you one of the cool ideas, and I think I've always been fan of this thought that maybe a vertical that's not directly your vertical, but some other business branch could be way ahead in its game, and had you see what's going on on digital marketing today, would give you what would say an insurtech or fintech or these industries would see probably in 1 or 2 years, right? So this will give you, so
Mm-hmm.
what's hot here in marketing now may be hot tomorrow, so you can start early. So that's why I think you can get a lot of interesting insights and ideas if you look at some of these industry leading business branches, and get a lot of fascinating use cases, and try to connect it to your ones, and you would be the thought leader. That's like fastest way to be the thought leader in your industry. What do you think?
Yeah.
It's a cheat sheet. Take it away, right? So,
Yeah.
and you are
Well, we only
welcome,
have so much
our
time,
audience.
so.
Awesome. So let's get to the news bites. It's the next section, and news bite is about news articles that Tao finds on the web around the topics of machine learning, AI, analytics, data, and all that. And then we leave it to Tao to do its own search, and come back with whatever. That's why sometimes we see a distinct flavor, and I think it's Maria and we just pretty much hold this newsletter and try to make sense out of it. What's Tao thinking? But eventually, it's the autonomy is on Tao's end, what it picks. But this one are the so three fascinating news write-ups. Microsoft brings IoT to the edge by Business Insider under IoT. What do you think, Maria? We'll resume after a short break. This part of the program is sponsored by JobFair at Tao.ai. To learn more, go to JobFair, that's JOBFAIR .TAO.ai. A fastest AI driven way to help you find your next job. Do check them out. Let's get back to the podcast.
Yeah, so this is a great example of what we were just talking about, right? 2 years ago, that they were predicting these kind of advancements, and here is, a great article that shows the rapid amount of impact that some of these companies are using these things for. So I think that as far as like, research, when you're researching or if you're starting up, or these are all great examples to show what you would have to deal with in your current markets. So I think this is a good case study here for the article that we were
I
just
agree.
talking
I think
about.
I agree with you. And again, shout out to our friends at Microsoft. I think Azure, they are doing fascinating job in carving out
Mm-hmm.
their niche, because I think they are slightly late in the party when it comes to cloud platform. But now they are actually picking up the right notes and building up right partnerships pretty rapidly. So I think very smart folks doing some smart things in Azure group. So IoT, it's like if you're in IoT space, there are not many custom solutions that are available to you that you can do to deploy, and Microsoft is putting considerable resources to helping out the edge of the IoT, or making the IoT smart and then connecting them to through Azure, and like making an impact quickly for an IoT industry or community folks. So I think that's definitely a pretty cool area to explore. And I think we need heavyweights like Microsoft or Amazon or any of the cloud storage platforms out there, vendors, to help out, jump out quickly and support, because IoT is going to be huge. It's going to be the data exhaust, right? That's so if you think about, if you're stressing out about data, the majority of that stress is coming from IoT, right? So, and if one of these heavyweights jump in the IoT space quickly, we can get a lot done, lot quickly than in any other way. So definitely very uplifting article for the IoT folks.
And then the Microsoft and Azure have some great community. So they do user groups and they have events, and so they have a really great community that's online and in person, I'm sure.
Oh, no,
And well, here in
yeah,
this city, so I'm sure in other cities as well that they're meeting like this.
and and basically I remember like 2 years back there was not, so we personally do never heard about Azure in our business conversations. Nowadays
Mm-hmm.
it's almost part of every enterprise conversation. Some of the, hey, they're testing Azure because they already Microsoft already have a good market share for the enterprise world, right? So it's fascinating to see how they spin that in a right direction to really capture a broader market. So kudos to their ability to create this sort of niche markets and addressing that and helping create a bigger use case there. So beautiful. So Cisco boost for cybersecurity skills shortage in South Africa. So I think this is a repeat. So I've seen this article. It's, I think it's primarily focused on how you can educate, how you can solve your own sort of talent woos by contributing to the marketplace, right? So by basically preparing more training centers, or empowering more training centers and outlets out there to create the awareness of talent that you would be needing. And that's, I think, many times, as we were discussing very last time, that many times people think of it as, hey, it's only for recruiting, but if you prepare someone, they may end up joining some other company, and then they may, right? So it's just creating awareness, even it, so it will also help your business development. So, and I think Cisco has been pioneer in, and even IBM and many of these platforms, in creating awareness rapidly, so that they can create a good healthy ecosystem in which there's a place for these big brands, as well as they create small ecosystems that might emerge on their own because of their effort. So beautiful strategy. Do you have anything to add, Maria, on this?
No, no, I agree. That's just great. It's the community coming together and doing things they haven't done before. So, and through the education that's provided, it's really great.
Yes, yes. And next one is interesting. So it's about sales analytics. So this is how this startup bet big on Instagram and won. Um,
Yeah.
so this is so thoughts, Maria.
So this article brings out a lot about the millennials and taking them into consideration and their habits, because they're different than the past behaviors of consumers. So I think it's really important that when we're talking about the audience and we're talking about those that we're speaking to and our customers, like the infographic from before, we remember that they change, with the media and the digital social media that's available. It really changes things as far as like the demographics and so forth. The age doesn't matter as much anymore online. So there's like little nuances that I think are really important to gain from the way that we relate through the social media, and this kind of brings that up.
True. I think that's yeah, that's rightly said. And um, what I find fascinating about this is influencer marketing. And I think for every branding enthusiast, I think this is one of the way. It actually, what I loved about this article was that where the sales is shifting now. Like earlier, we used to know that we used to see ads on TV by film stars, rock stars, all that, right? So we used to
Yeah.
appreciate those. Now it's just the matter of businesses finding you and me, folks like very ordinary folks doing ordinary stuff with a passion, and understanding their influence, and then using that influence to sort of piggyback on what we know, and then from there on creating some impact. And I think that's a fascinating area to see where analytics is heading in this direction. Like this is marketing done right in a way, right? Because I think I was reading a book on tribal leadership, and it was talking about, hey, the fastest way to grow is finding tribes, and basically and
Hmm.
influencing their tribe leaders. Because if the tribe leaders are sold, they'll talk about you within the tribe, and the entire tribe probably will get sold. So they were talking about various aspect of how you can sort of find the tribe leaders and find the tribe's passion, and then connect and all that.
And
That
that's
was
kind of what's happening now with social media, right? Because you
yeah.
have
So
individual folks that have millions of followers. They're not TV, movie, celebrity news famous, but they have that kind of tribe, right?
right.
And so,
I think that's fascinating. I'm still so it's interesting, and it's definitely an interesting space. Because I think one thing that definitely have changed since the birth of internet is now there are a lot more tribes out there, that each individual is part of lot more tribes than they used to in before, right? So earlier I used to be just in my village, and my village leader used to sort of do whatever they do. Nowadays I'm part of a lot of villages, right? So whether it's my ethnic communities, whether it's my academic communities, whether it's my local geoloco communities, and in social media I'm part of all these things, and somewhere I'm better, somewhere I'm not. So if businesses find where I'm better and use that, all powers to them. I think definitely, yeah, as long as the leaders are leaders, and the tribes are appreciated for the reach. And I think this is one of the fascinating use case of what analytics could do. One of the use case. And if and even like if you are in, say, if you are in enterprise sales, or if you're in sort of other, you can take a lot of learning from sort of, because you also have your own tribe to feed and take care of, right? So from that perspective, this beautiful. So okay, so now let's go to the featured course. And featured course is again Tao digging out for interesting courses, hopefully free. We have not seen any paid course yet, so we don't know what's going on. It's good, and it's finding all good rated courses. I'm still not sure, because in so this one is a statistical thinking and data analysis course, and I'm not sure how Tao is figuring out whether it's a good course or a bad course. Besides the point, it's MIT. So
yeah, I don't
because
know.
because there is no rating system out there. Like maybe it's asking Google and it's relying on Google. Maybe
I think I noticed that we had a couple Python tutorials, but mostly has been some R. Like this one's an R, uses R. So I think there's some diversity in the tools too, but I wonder if it's based off of, the tools or the programming languages.
right? Yeah, I don't know. Like it's but definitely a great course. I think it is that statistics 101 with data science 101. I think this is beautiful. It covers probability to hypothesis testing to variance testing. This is beautiful. Like this is like it's
Yeah,
the
it's
fastest way to learn
a
what the hell is going on. Yeah, what do you
good
think?
handle on the basics.
Yeah. So that is a keeper. So let's definitely do check it out. And now let's get to the featured read. What do you think, Maria?
Okay, yes, this book. So I think a while back we talked about another book from this author that was called Black Swan. Called Black Swan or
Yeah, it was Black Swan.
something similar, right? And I think that this is in tandem with that other one,
Right.
right?
And I think this is so. This gives an insight to the author. It's like inside of the author's thinking. So Nassim Taleb, a fascinating investor turned philosopher, and I think why. So when I saw this book on this newsletter, I was thinking why Tao has picked this on a statistics um, or data analytics domain. But I think one thing that I really got excited about is the philosophy of design, right? The philosophy of at least the thinking is something that we can utilize. And I read this book I think about a year and a half back. I remember it is a fascinated because it quickly I can connect the dots that why it's relevant now. Because do you want to discuss, Maria, what this book is about, or you want? Yeah,
Yes,
go
yeah,
ahead.
I think it's really, it points to a lot of things that need more investigation. So, please go forward.
Right. So it's basically, I think the core philosophy is very simple of what this book is saying, and let me give it quickly a bit away. So it still won't take out the entire juice of why you should read this book, I think, but it gives you the concept what the hell is going on. So the argument that Nassim is throwing in this book is there's something called fragile, and what is fragile? So if you shake it, it gets broken. It's fragile. And when we say what's opposite to fragile, you say robust, right? So robust is something you shake, nothing breaks, right? But if you think from a statistical point of view, they are not really polar. So what would be polar to something if you shake something breaks is when you shake it gets stronger, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
saying that when we say fragile's opposite is robust, robust is a neutral state. You did whatever, there's nothing out as an outcome. So what he's suggesting is there's something called anti-fragile. So if you shake something, it should get stronger, right? So the point and basically it's pointing towards some feedback mechanism, and I think we do see some of these occurrences in our statistical models, right? So if we are taking into account the output, and we feed back into the system, if we have a feedback systems in place, we actually can take the noise and adjust the model. So if we start seeing a lot of noise emerging because of change in the behavior of data, or changing the behavior of sensor that's getting us this data, and we fed it back to the system, say okay, if it happens that many times, consider it a signal, not a noise, and it just get added to the signal. So in that zone, we are in a way indirectly doing the same thing. So we are actually making our model stronger in case of change. And I think even in Nassim Taleb's theory of black swan was this: we're relying so much on technology around nowadays that we might not see the areas where sort of something fails that might cause a bigger impact because we are not focusing on those areas. So this actually,
Mm-hmm.
as Maria rightly pointed out, it's segue into that philosophy saying, okay, why don't you make whatever you have anti-fragile, so that you appreciate and you pre-assume there's going to be a hiccup, and there's a container to sort of contain that hiccup and then adjust the model, so you can quickly recover if in case you see something that is something goofy going around, or some pattern or some anomaly that you see. So the thought is beautiful, right? So the thought is, that's, I think, it's a good philosophical thought that statistician could learn from. And I think why And Maria, we were discussing about whether this is a whether it's a right move to add this book into the newsletter when Tao put it in. But I think we were discussing about it, that why it's like we do see these things in our statistical life, right? So we do see some of the model appreciating anti-fragile phenomena. We just don't know what to call it, or if
Mm-hmm.
we should call it that way. But it points to a very good psyche that a modeler or designer or algo designer or a coder or developer should keep in mind when they design a system, that they need to make it they don't have to make a robust system. You have to make an anti-fragile system, so you should appreciate
Mm-hmm.
the fragility and how to respond to that. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It's just like being more aware, and mindful of that which is unknown, and trying to make sense of it. So I dig this perspective.
We'll resume after a short break. This part of the program is sponsored by JobFair at Tao.ai. To learn more, go to JobFair, that's JOBFAIR .TAO.ai. A fastest AI driven way to help you find your next job. Do check them out. Let's get back to the podcast. I heard the word mindful, so I think we are going in a yoga session somewhere, or maybe I don't know, it's like karma session or something.
Well, I just mean more attention, paying more attention,
I
and
know it's
being like,
beautiful. It's I think this is the example of how philosophy and science are so related, right? So
yeah,
like philosophy gives us like uh, the thinking points, and science just go work on this hypothesis, saying, hey, this is right or wrong, whatever the thing is, right? So beautiful, again, beautiful book. Do check it out. It, if nothing, it gives you that perspective that will make you a beautiful modeler or a great data scientist, right? It will save your company from debacle one day. It will save your company from black swans. So definitely a very
hmm
good book there.
yeah, it's a whole different, like a whole elevation on being prepared. I
Right.
think that and that it also can um, deal with some of those biases when you're coming from this kind of way of thinking.
Right. So now gets to the tips and tricks of the week. Uh, Grow at the speed of collaboration. What do you think?
Yes, I like that.
Yeah.
That's something I feel like I have to repeat all the time. But everyone wants to get things done, and things take time, and then you have to have checks and balances so that you're making sure, like we said, the biases, and that we're aware of all of the pitfalls and obstacles, and strong enough to go through them in the time frame. But if we collaborate and have better communication, I feel like those processes are so much smoother.
Rightly said, Maria. I think when I saw this, I thought, hey, why the hell am I seeing it again? But as you rightly, we hear it so many times. I thought we have seen it again. Like it was never discussed in the newsletter before. It's just because that we hear it a lot, and
Yeah,
why it's so cool and critical nowadays. Because I think one of the key things that I'm sure you must agree, and so does our listeners, that it's difficult to sell someone the idea of data science, right? So it's difficult to sell them a solution. So who are you? What are you thinking? What's going on in your mind? If I'm a gut feel based decision maker, it is a nightmare to convince me that data probably could help, because I think all I can see is if you ask data, it would just say people want faster horses, right? So we would have never gone into this direction of cars, right? That's not what data could
right.
discover. So now when you have those conversations, it's difficult to sell the idea of data. And then obviously we know um, even the data is hackable, as Mr. Dilbert just briefly told us, right? It's we don't know what is real, what's not real, if we can rely on a data. And then if there's no intuition in it, data tend to be biased towards the system, that and systems are biased with the designer. So it just there's a lot of hoopla going around that sells in a different direction of if we should pursue a data science project or not. Having done collaboration, this creates the culture. So the biggest problem that we are seeing with our clients, with our interactions with businesses that we talk to, is the selling is hard. Selling is hard with this thought of, right. So what if something could go wrong and we have no, what if something we should not know and we are knowing. So there are a lot of conversations, we get into those conversations, and collaboration gets this culture going. And once the culture is in, selling is easy because almost everyone has already talked about this thing before. So you you save on your energy and effort to sell this idea. So it's, although it is always, and Maria, you must have seen the same thing, people put it at the last to fix the culture. They say, okay, let me solve this problem first and show them the value, and then keep doing that, and then probably one day, if I have the budget, I can fix the culture. But I think it's paramount that you should start to fix or at least influence the culture as early as possible. What do you think?
Oh, totally agree that paying attention to the culture will eliminate a lot of smaller problems that will have hangups if you want to care about speed.
Right, right. Yes. So again, good tip. Good tip. So fix the culture. Grow at the speed of collaboration, and definitely you get a lot of interesting perspectives. For a model, you will be out of your bubble. If you bring outside parties in, so collaboration is always healthy. So whenever you get a chance to collaborate, always the answer to check is yes. Never no or maybe, and never all of
Yeah.
the above too. That's risky too. So now let's talk about Q&A. What is the life cycle
Yeah.
of data science project? This is a
Yeah. There's a lot.
long read for our audience.
Yeah, a long read, but it also is numbered, so you can quickly kind of go through and see. But I think all these pieces are really important, and it's important to know, like, have a bird's eye view, kind of just a map,
Right.
of the
So
process.
so basically, to to compile it into a shorter pitch, it's 7 simple steps: acquire data, prepare it, model it, evaluate it, deploy it, maintain it, and then optimize it. And I think that's in a short. So you acquire whatever you have, then you prepare it in a form that you can do something on it, then you write a model to see if you can find some insights out of this, and then you evaluate what is going on. And then once you're happy with the test, you say, okay, let me deploy it and see how things work. And then you maintain it. You calibrate it, cross calibrate it, overfit it under, like, you fit it as needed, and then you optimize the experience as you go. That's a data science project. It's a typical maturity project, by the way. So you can call it a five stage, you can call it 7 stage. In this particular example, it's done in 7 stages. And by the way, in no order, like, these 7 steps could be in parallel, in vertical, like it's in series. It just depends. Like, many places, modeling and evaluation and optimization are closer together, and then deploy and maintain going on. So it depending on your organization and your data collection speed and frequency and sort of variance, you change these 7, but they're just the mix of these 7, what makes a life cycle. What do you think, Maria?
Yeah, I think this is something, just to have as like a roadmap, so you can definitely move through any process if you are looking at whether it's, the business side or the data science side, but they have the same kind of components, so you can keep track of the process.
Nice, nice. So that concludes our left side. So now let's go to the side panel of
Yes.
the newsletter. What do you think about the video of the week, Maria?
Yeah, so we had a great talk here, video by Judah Phillips, right? And shout out to this this talk, he's really pushing forward, our expectations and standards. And so um, I found it really informative.
Yeah, so I think it's so one thing that was fascinating about this pitch. So I remember I was when we organized his talk in one of our conference or unconference in Boston. We had some of the MBA students sitting in the crowd, and many of us came
Uh-huh.
to us saying that, hey, this is like the entire MBA in marketing in 1 hour. So
Yeah.
it was loaded. It was a lot of keywords jumbled together, sandwich in a very comfortable way. And I think this is, if you, again, if you have not done MBA in marketing and you want to do, this is a 1 hour MBA in marketing. So definitely Judah is a very renowned guy in marketing analytics. He had published bunch of books, very respected author and speaker, so and a great friend, I think. And he had been we had been conversing a lot lately, since I got to know him. Very very knowledgeable guy. He has, yeah. So definitely check out his video. And this is the fastest way to learn what CMOs like should think and how they should think.
Hmm. And he talks about like really all the pieces, like finding your audience and paying attention to the customer service and or customer feedback and that user experience. He also talks about making a team, and he talks about analytics, and um, he I think he really brings to light a lot of the pieces that are fundamental.
Right, right. So again, beautiful video. So quote of the week: he uses statistics as a drunken man uses lamppost for support rather than for illumination. From Andrew Lang. Wow. So that's a that's a that's a very loaded statement. Yeah. What do you think, Maria?
Um, so I get the idea, like, the analytics, or the statistics is the support and the backbone, and kind of we have different ways of calling data science, and these maturing silos that are coming out with their own titles and so forth. But I think that the statistics is really in the core, right? And
Right.
so I kind of, that's what I get from it, is that the statistics is really some of the foundation of creating the support for any insight or any argument
Well
or
said.
proof.
Well said. So
you
that's
know
awesome. So now let's talk about the podcast of the week. So Sean Naismith from Innova Decisions. What do you think, Maria?
Yeah, so this one, I thought he brought a lot of perspective. It was a good conversation that you had with him here on what they're doing over there and how their approach is. So it was very insightful to see like the diversity, you know, and
Right.
when you have these conversations with these folks. So
Well, it's exciting. I think to our audience, this is the most viewed podcast
ah
in our arsenals, and yeah, it's fascinating. So people love his talk. So definitely very knowledgeable, very smart guy. And we discussed about his journey and what Innova does and how sort of he fits into the Innova ecosystem and all that. And again, so he gives a very practitioner's point of view. And typically, so in this podcast, so we do this newsletter, and then we try to bring leaders to talk about how leaders think, and we bring the practitioners. Leaders give us that perspective of the strategy, how leaders think, how businesses think, how we should think, what are some of the challenges, right? And practitioners give us that agility of tactical things that we could do. These guys are doing. They're making an impact right now here without too much respect for or culture. So they are the real change makers, right? And leaders are pretty much, they are the visionaries on of that change. So we try to bring all these thoughts together in this podcast. So Sean clearly fits into the practitioner side of things. So he was again very, and I also had a conversation with Joe from Innova, and he gave a beautiful insight on the perspective of how leaders think. And by the way, that's the second most viewed podcast in our arsenal. So
Mm.
it's funny. I think it's so Innova is definitely there's something going on there. So
Well, I think they just give a lot of, how to deal with the competitive environment, and they still have,
right,
they're driven, and they, have that teamwork there. So they have a lot of pieces that are running.
right. No, I think it's fascinating. So yeah, so check the podcast out. It will be good use of your time. You got to see a practitioner's point of view, running a consulting, and building a product in a consulting, and then selling that. So what does it take in that thinking? So it's a very quick, short route to a practitioner doing some things in a service environment. So now let's talk about fact of the week. Within 50 years, there'll be over 50 billion smart connected devices in the world, all developed and collect. I think we are seeing this again, and I don't think so.
Yeah,
We have to say anything on this. 50 billion.
yeah.
Like
I think
I,
this one's a repeat.
when is a trillion coming? I'm already. It's already two. Like really, we just so now 50 like billion is maybe the million is the new million. It's like
Yeah.
all the it's crazy. I was looking at YouTube. There are videos which have reached like 3 billion. I remember like a couple of months back, YouTube was crying, hey, we don't have an algorithm to show 1 billion. Now their videos in couple of months just went to 3 billion, 3.5, 4 billion marks. It's,
Wow.
yeah, I think billion is no more, it's turning out to be a million now. So anyhow, that brings us to the end of the newscast. And before you run away, we have something fun to discuss. So, first Friday fair, Maria, that's going good. So, to our
Yeah.
audience, we actually have nailed down a recipe for virtual career fair. It's
Yeah.
called First Friday Fair. It's out, and
All right.
we will put a very sleazy link on this newsletter. We'll try to.
Cool.
So, my humble apology up front if this is not what you anticipate, but it is supposed to help our community members find jobs. We have interesting recruiters, we have interesting businesses, we have interesting followers who are looking for interesting work, and this is one of the things that we want to promote: healthy hiring, using artificial intelligence for hiring. So, if you are looking for candidates or if you're looking for work, check out First Friday Fair link on this newsletter, and you can also check it out at link mathmath.im/fff First Friday Fair. So that will get you to the place where you want to see, and even Tao is seeing some changes. So now it's a very pre conversation, but don't tell it to anyone. It's between you and us. Tao is seeing some changes. It used to be 7-page bloated long thing. We are shrinking it to 1 page. That is still manageable. So you won't. And we have gained some interesting insights. Some of people are actually getting some interesting conversations going, and we are also increasing slightly our outreach to a couple of more folks. So in next 3 months, we will be increasing our span to. We're including other a lot more people into Tao, like pre-alpha to test. So if you get an invite in within 3 months, don't get panic. It's randomly you're chosen. So do give your contribution. Do use Tao to grow your career. And I think we have some interesting feedback from existing users. So definitely it would impact your career. That's for sure, in a positive way. That's for sure. So thank you so much again for
Wow.
watching this podcast.
That's exciting.
That's
Good news.
exciting. And Maria, any parting thoughts before we head to the next newsletter?
Yeah, no, I think that we've got a lot that we learned from this one, and we can take away a lot to start doing something with it. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And with that, bye bye,
thank you so
folks,
much.
and thank you so much. See you on the week 37. Bye bye.
Bye.
I thought I was sick of home, but actually I was homesick. Never really knew that I would have to grow up so quick. I'm so uncomfortable, don't know anybody here. Just a couple dudes that I met once, that's it. And I go into the booth feeling nervous. Got butterflies in my stomach like I'm so worthless. Is the mic on? I don't know how to work this. Inside I'm breaking down, I hope I'm not up on a